Hi, thank you for joining me today. My name is John Newby. This is John 2028 Apologetics. And today's video is going to be the top 5 reasons why I support a young Earth. Now, this topic is obviously much more broad than this. There's many other reasons, but these are just my favorite top 5. Number 5, we have living fossils. We have creatures that were supposed to be extinct hundreds of millions of years ago, even pre-dinosaur, like the coelacanth or the frilled shark, and even the goblin shark. These animals were supposed to be before dinosaurs. And they're still alive today. They're still found today. And they look exactly the way they were found in the fossil record. So I just find it very, very hard to believe, and I think it's reasonable to be skeptical, that if the ocean is where all life comes from, and the ocean is capable of making such diverse life, where we can get single-cell organisms to some type of fish where it's eventually crawling on the ground, to venture off out of the ocean. That through these millions and millions of years, it just so happened that these animals didn't evolve over time with it as well. So this to me throws a massive red flag into the face of macro evolution, not micro evolution, which is small changes in time, but macro evolution, which is a completely different change of a kind. So if animals are alive today that were supposed to be alive pre-dinosaur in the ocean, then I just don't understand how the only argument can be is that they just stopped evolving. So you have to say that. But they just so happen to stop evolving in the ocean that can change so much life in over millions of years of time. But these ones that didn't change, I find that extremely, extremely unplausible. Number 4, the historical recordings by people displaying dinosaurs or dragons. Remember, the word dinosaur didn't come about until the early mid-1800s, whenever dinosaur bones were being found. So what you're looking at here predates that, obviously, by 1,000 years. So how did they know what they look like if dinosaur bones weren't found until the early mid-1800s, and they weren't being put together by scientists until some time after that? And these are anatomically correct. Like, anybody can look at these, and this is literally the top of the iceberg on this one. There is thousands and thousands of examples and art. I could do a 10-hour video on this one alone. So, as a police officer, I like to use equal scales arguments. If you're going to use one argument on one side, it has to be applied to the other. If the same amount of grace isn't given to that side, or the same amount of skepticism isn't given to that side, then it's a bad argument. So, for instance, there has been Egyptian art which depicts maybe an airplane or a helicopter or some type of advanced technology. They automatically jump the leap of faith. How would they know what these things look like? They're aerodynamic. The model of this plane that was found in Egypt is aerodynamic. How would they know what this stuff looks like? Is it aliens and X, Y, and Z? So they automatically run with their faith with this. But because they have been indoctrinated with Darwinian evolution, they want to apply the same standard that they would apply with the hieroglyphics and stuff that are found in Egypt, with the Baghdad batteries and all this other stuff. You can't tell me what is the explanation where they have anatomically correct looking dinosaurs on cave walls all around the world, like these 2 examples you see here. And then you got the independent eyewitness statements where people said that they had saw them, like Pliny the Elder, who writes this here in India, which produces the largest, quote, elephants as well as the dragon. And, quote, the dragon is itself of such enormous size as to envelope the elephants with its folds. And then Flavius writes about something in the same era about dragons that are living in this area. These weren't men who were trying to convince people that creationism is real, okay? And of course, the book of Job God's word describes something that seems to be a dinosaur. It's big hips and a long tail like a cedar tree. So what is the chance? Is it possible that this could have just been fairy tales and it's just a lucky hit? It's possible. Is it probable? I don't believe it is. All right, number 3, the physical evidence. Well, the physical evidence here is that we have literally T-Rex DNA that has been found where it still is stretchy tissue. Okay, so, I find it funny that people like atheists and agnostics believe that we are just people of faith and will just jump to anything that follows our faith. You're going to tell me that T-Rex DNA maintained stretchy tissue for 100 million years because of some type of situation it was buried, or that is ridiculous. You know it, I know it. The amount of change that affects the earth, its climate, it's absolutely ridiculous to believe that is it possible? Yeah. Is it plausible? No. And then we have human footprints that's been found in the same rock layers of dinosaur footprints, and this part actually is going to roll into the second reason here, number 2, top 2 reason here in a moment. But literally, limestone that was being uncovered and shown in the same fossil record, in the same level, has human and dinosaur footprints the same, right next to each other. And the only explanation they have is it's fake, or that it's a dinosaur that had similar shaped feet like humans. That's it. And the reports when this stuff was being unearthed was that the evolutionists got in their helicopters and flew off when it was unearthed in front of them, because they didn't want to accept the fact of what was being discovered. And that rolls us into number 2. Can you trust the opposing position, their claim? As a police officer, whenever we hear a statement, a witness statement, or if someone wants to explain X, we want to know who that person is and what they're saying, what's the context that they're saying, and do they have any intent why they would say such a thing. And if you listen to the stories like I just mentioned a second ago about the dinosaur and human footprints being unearthed, and they literally got in their helicopters and flew away, didn't address it at all because it pushed against their worldview. We see this also it starts in the late 1800s, and it's been happening till to this day. And this is whenever the theory of Darwinian evolution came. So the Smithsonian's and New York Times, this stuff was reported and discovered from giants. And I'm going to do a giant video eventually. I'm looking really forward to doing that video, but right now I'm just going to touch on it a little bit here. And what I'm saying is that the opposing side is telling you one thing, but is there any motivation behind for what they're saying? Of course there is. Just like there's motivation for us to show the powers and wisdom of God's creation. And their motivation is their lifestyle and their justification for how they want to live. They want to live in sin, because if you can come up with a theory that excludes God, then there is no, in their minds at least, there is no penalty for their lifestyle decisions and the way they think and the way they behave. But look at here. Giants were found. Giant bones were found. This would absolutely blow up in the face of Darwinian evolution. This would totally destroy it, because we're supposed to be getting from some things, least complex to something more complex over time. And there was a race of giants. So that's the motivation behind it. So how can you even trust what they're saying? I don't think people bring this point up enough. I wanted to highlight this point, is that how can you really trust what they're saying? And remember, look how science has evolved over time today. Now science is bending the knee to cultural outrage, especially in the West, from transgenderism and homosexuality and things like this. So science also bends to these alternative lifestyles that aren't science. It's not science to say man is a woman because he wants to be. That's insane. We all know it's insane. And these are the people that's telling you that that life came from a primordial soup over 4.5 billion years ago, and because of strange weather patterns, it grew to a human being. I mean, to me, that's crazy. Much crazier than the, quote, Sky Daddy zapping everybody here. All right, and number one, well, I mean, when does the history record start? When does it start? When's the very first eyewitness statement? When does civilization start? Well, the very first civilization is Mesopotamia, about 4,000, 5,000, or 3,500 BC. All right, what you're looking here on the left is Scorpio 1's tombs, the hieroglyphs from the year recorded, 34 to 3,200 BC. And that was located in Egypt, and it's a writing and system language. This is the very first writing system. This also correlates with the time that the Old Testament says whenever God brought man on earth. And also the birth rate. This correlates with the compounding evidence of when history started. And when history started, what about the birth rates? When you take into consideration famine and wars and children or babies dying during childbirth, when you take all this stuff into consideration, if you start with 8 people, which is what Genesis reports, what Moses wrote down 4,500 years ago, today you get roughly 6.5 billion people today. If you start 50,000 years ago, when the first Homo erectus, first Homo sapien, started reproducing according to the Darwinian evolution chart, this would be the amount of people, according to that birth rate, that would be on Earth today. And you're looking at a number that literally is infallible. That is 100 zeros. That's how many people would be alive today, compared to 6.5 billion, which we're at about 7 billion right now. And we've seen an uptick in population because of the technology that we brought into the last century. But now we're at a birth rate decline, and that's for a whole nother topic of a video. But there you go. So these are my top 5 reasons why I believe that it shows the Earth is young, or it's created. It's not billions of years old. The living fossils, I just think it's crazy that you're going to tell me everything on Earth can evolve and adapt, but these creatures just so happen to. Then how do you know that these creatures adapted beforehand? Because of missing links and because of the fossil record, or because you have creatures that look similar to them and at a lower stage? How do you know that just wasn't a different creature? Number 4, people writing and describing dinosaurs in art and in writings and independent eyewitness statements. How do they know what these things look like? How could they paint them to make them look correctly if they've never seen one? Number 3, the physical evidence with the stretchy T-Rex DNA that's been found in human and dinosaur footprints found in the same rock layers, and they refuse to be examined by Darwinian evolutionists. And that rolls into the number 2 reason, is that can you really trust their position on this topic? It seems like they have an axe to grind against God. It's not consistent. And number 1, I mean, when history starts, when we have it recorded, correlates with when the Bible says that the human race started, and from the first civilization to the first writings to the birth rate. Thank you for listening. God bless you in Jesus' name.